The world today feels like it's spinning out of control. Everyone is talking, few are listening, every second is urgent, every opinion a battlefield. We're exhausted, not from what we're doing, but from what we're feeling, we care about. Everything, every comment, every headline, every expectation. We drown in our own emotional investment. But what if the real strength lies not in caring more, but in caring less? Not cold detachment, disciplined focus, not apathy, strategic indifference. There's a man who saw this centuries ago, a French nobleman who watched society burn and quietly stepped back, not to escape it, but to understand it, to question it, to redefine what it means to live on your own terms. His name was Michel de Montaigne, and he discovered something radical. When you stop caring about what doesn't matter, everything that does falls into place. The 16th century was a time of chaos. Plague, political instability, and religious wars tore Europe apart. People lived in fear, trapped by ideologies, dogma, and the shifting tides of power. Nations clashed, minds were manipulated, ideals shattered. It was a world in crisis, and Michel de Montaigne, a French nobleman, was at the heart of it. Yet amidst this turmoil, Montaigne did something radical. He stepped away from the world. He resigned from his public duties as a magistrate and retreated to a quiet tower in the French countryside. There, surrounded by books and silence, Montaigne began writing. But his writings weren't about the external world, the politics, the wars, the chaos. They were about the self. His book, Essays, was an exploration of the mind, his mind. Montaigne opened his heart to the deepest contradictions of his own being. He wrote with brutal honesty, confronting his own fears, weaknesses, and desires. His inquiries weren't about finding concrete answers. They were about understanding himself in a world that often demanded certainty. He questioned everything. What was virtue? What was pride? What was the value of certainty in a world that constantly shifted beneath his feet? Montaigne's essays weren't just a reflection on society. They were a critique of it, a critique of all that society demanded: beliefs, behaviors, ideologies. He rejected the norms that bound others. Instead, he focused on the fluidity of the human condition. He didn't seek to impose answers. Instead, he explored the complexity of life without trying to fit it into neat categories. His approach was revolutionary. He was not merely a philosopher. He was an early psychologist, deeply skeptical of collective delusions and societal extremes. In a time when conformity was valued, Montaigne embraced uncertainty. He challenged the very foundation of human knowledge. He dismissed the idea that we must have everything figured out to live a meaningful life. Montaigne's radical skepticism opened a door to modern psychological liberation. In a world that today still feels overrun by opinions, ideologies, and social expectations, Montaigne's work offers a breath of fresh air. His philosophy invites us to step back, examine our inner selves, and resist the overwhelming pressures to conform. Like a modern-day psychologist, Montaigne taught that understanding oneself without the constant need to conform was the key to living authentically. He embraced contradiction as part of the human experience. He didn't shy away from discomfort, nor did he seek to escape the chaos of his time. Instead, he observed it, he questioned it, and ultimately, he chose what to care about. In many ways, Montaigne was the first to give us permission to embrace our contradictions, to question authority without fearing the consequences, to live for ourselves, not for the judgment of others. As we navigate today's world, where confusion, manipulation, and power struggles still reign, we would do well to listen to Montaigne. His philosophy isn't just a relic of the past, it's a blueprint for modern liberation, a guide to breaking free from the collective delusions that still trap us. When you step back, like Montaigne did, and choose what you care about, you gain a new freedom, freedom from the madness, the noise, and the suffocating need to fit in. And in that space, something remarkable happens. You begin to discover the truth of who you really are. We live in an age of relentless distraction. Our minds are constantly bombarded with images, opinions, and demands. Whether it's the constant hum of social media notifications or the never-ending stream of news headlines, we are surrounded by a society that thrives on our attention, and our attention in turn becomes a commodity, something to be bought, sold, and manipulated. But what happens when we care too much? When we invest ourselves in every issue, every cause, every argument? At first glance, it may seem like the mark of a responsible, engaged individual. After all, isn't caring a virtue? Shouldn't we be involved in everything, aware of all that's happening in the world? But here's the catch. Caring about everything is a trap. It spreads our energy thin and clouds our judgment. It transforms us from active participants in life to passive recipients of constant noise. The more we care, the less we can truly focus, and the less we focus, the more we become prey to external forces that seek to control our thoughts and actions. Consider the power of media manipulation. Headlines are designed not to inform, but to provoke an emotional reaction. We click, we share, we argue, but in the end, we rarely question whether we should be caring about what we're being told to care about. The modern media thrives on outrage, scandal, and division because it knows that these emotions sell. We are conditioned to care about the most immediate, the most dramatic, the most sensational. But in doing so, we lose sight of the bigger picture. We become pawns in a game of power, manipulated by forces far beyond our control. Montaigne understood this instinctively. In his time, the world was consumed by religious wars, political strife, and intellectual dogma. Everyone had an opinion. Everyone was certain they knew the right way to live. But Montaigne, with his radical skepticism, recognized the dangers of certainty. He knew that the more we invest in the opinions of others, the less we understand ourselves. The more we care about the beliefs of the masses, the more we lose sight of our personal truth. What Montaigne offers, then, is not an escape from the world, but a way to reclaim our autonomy, a way to stop letting society hijack our attention and dictate our values. He teaches us that caring too much doesn't make us more virtuous, it makes us more vulnerable. By choosing what we care about, we regain control over our own minds. We don't have to be a part of every debate, every trend, or every crisis. We don't have to be outraged at every injustice. Instead, we can prioritize what truly matters to us and focus our energies there. Montaigne's philosophy isn't about withdrawing from the world. It's about engaging with it in a way that is intentional, thoughtful, and free from the manipulation that surrounds us. But to do this, we must first ask, what truly matters? What are the things in life that are worthy of our emotional investment? And how do we separate the noise from the signal? In today's world, these are the questions we need to ask ourselves, because if we don't, we risk being overwhelmed, exhausted, and ultimately controlled by the very forces that claim to be for us. Montaigne's approach to life was not about renouncing the world entirely. He didn't retreat into his tower to become a hermit or a recluse. Instead, he created a new kind of engagement with life, one that was defined not by blind attachment, but by selective indifference. Selective indifference is a delicate art. It's not about shutting yourself off from the world or pretending that nothing matters. That's apathy, an emotional withdrawal that leaves you numb and disconnected. Rather, Montaigne's philosophy teaches us to embrace a form of indifference that is rooted in conscious choice. We must choose what to care about and what to leave behind. This is where Montaigne's radical approach becomes truly transformative. He believed that we should not mindlessly invest ourselves in every external cause. Instead, we must turn inward and evaluate the forces that shape our thoughts, beliefs, and behaviors. This process of self-examination is what he called the essays, a personal exploration of the mind and its many contradictions. Montaigne's writings were a journey into the complexity of human experience. He didn't offer fixed answers or moral judgments. Instead, he showed us that the mind is a battleground of competing impulses, each vying for our attention. The key, he argued, was not to try to suppress those impulses, but to recognize and understand them. By doing so, we could separate what truly matters from the noise. This process of selective indifference is what allows us to live with authenticity in a world full of distractions. It's the ability to engage deeply with the things that align with our values, while disengaging from those that don't. Montaigne showed that we can be part of the world without being consumed by it. We can be aware of its flaws and contradictions without losing ourselves in them. Take the modern world, for example. The constant barrage of opinions, ideologies, and movements often leaves us feeling as though we must take a stand on everything. But Montaigne reminds us that not every cause is worth our energy. Not every argument is worth our time. Instead, we must learn to choose our battles wisely. Selective indifference means recognizing when something is pulling us away from our true self. It means not letting the opinions of others dictate our inner peace. It's about having the clarity to decide which relationships, which causes, and which values are worthy of our time and energy. This approach is especially relevant in the age of social media, where every issue seems urgent and every opinion seems like a moral imperative. The temptation to react, to care about everything, is overwhelming. But Montaigne's wisdom cuts through the noise. He shows us that our attention is finite. If we spread it too thin, we lose sight of what truly matters. In his essays, Montaigne was constantly examining his own feelings, his own actions, and his own thoughts. He didn't hide from his contradictions. He explored them. He didn't pretend to have all the answers. He questioned everything, including his own beliefs. And in this process, he found peace, not by disengaging from life, but by choosing where to direct his energy. To practice selective indifference is to take back control of our attention. It's about recognizing the power of choice, the power to decide what we give our time and emotional investment to. Montaigne understood that by stepping back and evaluating the world with clarity, we can find a sense of purpose and meaning that is not dictated by external forces. Selective indifference is not about being cold, detached, or indifferent to the suffering of others. It's about knowing that we can only help others and ourselves when we are emotionally and mentally clear. When we protect our inner world from unnecessary distractions, we can more effectively engage with the things that truly matter. Those causes that align with our core values, the relationships that nourish us, and the goals that give us a sense of purpose. In a world that demands so much of us, Montaigne's method offers a powerful antidote. By embracing the art of selective indifference, we can reclaim our time, our energy, and our peace of mind. We can step back from the madness of the world and find our own path, free from the suffocating expectations of others. Montaigne's philosophy offers a powerful paradox, that true freedom comes not from holding on to everything, but from letting go. In a world that constantly pushes us to accumulate, whether it's possessions, opinions, or responsibilities, Montaigne challenges us to release the grip we have on things that ultimately weigh us down. But letting go doesn't mean abandoning all concern for the world. It doesn't mean withdrawing from life or surrendering to apathy. Instead, Montaigne teaches us that freedom comes from releasing our attachment to outcomes, judgments, and the relentless pursuit of certainty. In our modern age, we are conditioned to believe that control equals safety. We believe that by managing every detail, by holding tightly to our ideals and beliefs, we can navigate the world with certainty. But this constant need for control only creates more stress, more confusion, and more internal conflict. The tighter we hold, the more we are consumed by the chaos around us. Montaigne, however, rejected this model. He didn't try to control the world. Instead, he sought to understand himself within it. He knew that the only thing we can truly control is our own mind. Everything else, the external world, the opinions of others, the opinions we try to force upon ourselves, is beyond our grasp. Montaigne's radical freedom lies in this simple truth. To let go of the need for control is to reclaim our power. To understand this freedom, we must first acknowledge that our attachment to things is often the root of our suffering. We attach ourselves to ideas about who we should be, to notions of success, to what others think of us, to what society expects us to achieve. These attachments are not inherently bad, but they limit us. They trap us in cycles of striving, comparison, and anxiety. Montaigne understood this well. He observed how people are consumed by ambition, by the need to appear successful, by the desire for approval. He saw how these attachments lead to inner conflict and ultimately a life lived in pursuit of external validation. Instead of rejecting ambition or success altogether, Montaigne argued that we should reframe these goals. Success, in his view, wasn't about meeting societal standards or impressing others. It was about achieving inner peace. It was about understanding our desires without letting them control us. The path to freedom, then, isn't through more achievement. It's through less attachment. By letting go of our need to control everything, we create the space for clarity, for peace, and for a more meaningful engagement with the world. Montaigne's philosophy suggests that we should practice this freedom daily. When we feel ourselves becoming too attached to an outcome, we must step back and ask, what does this really mean to me? Is this goal truly mine, or is it something I've inherited from the expectations of others? By recognizing these influences, we free ourselves from their grip. But letting go also applies to our fears and anxieties. How often do we worry about what might happen, about things outside our control? Montaigne teaches us that these worries are often rooted in our attachment to a specific outcome. If we release the need to predict the future, we free ourselves from the constant cycle of anxiety. This doesn't mean abandoning responsibility or living recklessly. Rather, it means accepting that we cannot control everything, and that the pursuit of control often leads us further from peace. Montaigne's radical insight is that letting go is not an act of surrender. It is an act of strength. Letting go, according to Montaigne, is about finding peace in the chaos. It's about accepting life's unpredictability and trusting that we have the resilience to navigate whatever comes our way. It's about realizing that true freedom comes not from controlling the external world, but from freeing ourselves from the internal forces that keep us trapped in cycles of worry, stress, and expectation. In this sense, Montaigne's philosophy is deeply psychological. It offers a form of mental liberation, a way to break free from the chains of self-doubt, external pressures, and the need to control. By letting go, we embrace the present moment, unburdened by the weight of past regrets or future anxieties. In today's world, where stress and burnout are all too common, Montaigne's lessons offer a profound way to reclaim our mental well-being. To let go is not to give up, but to create the space to live more fully, to act more intentionally, and to find joy in the present rather than in the endless pursuit of something we may never attain. One of the most profound elements of Montaigne's philosophy is his approach to judgment. In an era where societal expectations and external opinions weigh heavily on our lives, Montaigne offers a radical invitation to live without the constant fear of judgment. At the heart of Montaigne's work is an unflinching honesty with himself. He didn't concern himself with how others perceived him, nor did he seek the approval of society. Instead, he turned inward, becoming the sole judge of his own actions and thoughts. This was not an act of narcissism or ego. It was an act of liberation, a way of freeing himself from the judgmental gaze of the world and the internalized expectations that so often shape our lives. We live in a world that thrives on judgment. From social media platforms that fuel comparison to cultural norms that dictate our behavior, we are constantly told how we should look, act, think, and feel. This external pressure creates a tension that often leads to self-doubt, insecurity, and a disconnection from our true selves. We become performers in a play we didn't write, acting out roles that don't fit us, all in the name of acceptance. Montaigne saw this dynamic clearly. He understood that the fear of judgment is a prison. It keeps us tethered to the opinions of others, constantly adjusting our lives and choices to meet the expectations of society. The more we care about what others think, the less we are able to live authentically. Instead of following our own path, we find ourselves following a path paved by the judgments of others. Montaigne, however, opted out of this game. He rejected the need for external validation. His essays are filled with personal reflections on his flaws, contradictions, and the messy nature of human existence. He didn't write to please others. He wrote to understand himself. In this process, he became free from the tyranny of judgment, both from others and from himself. To live without fear of judgment is to reclaim our personal sovereignty. It is to acknowledge that the only opinion that truly matters is our own. This doesn't mean we become indifferent to others. It means we stop allowing their judgments to control our actions and emotions. We stop changing ourselves to fit the mold that society has created for us. Instead, we begin to create our own molds, informed by our values, our experiences, and our authentic desires. This approach is incredibly liberating. Imagine for a moment living in a world where you are not constantly measuring yourself against the expectations of others. Imagine not being afraid to express your true thoughts, not second-guessing yourself every time you make a decision. Imagine living with the freedom to follow your own path, without the weight of judgment looming over you. Montaigne's method of self-reflection and personal judgment offers a blueprint for this kind of freedom. He teaches us that self-acceptance is the foundation of a fulfilled life. It's not about being perfect, but about embracing our imperfections and contradictions without shame. It's about acknowledging our humanity and accepting ourselves, as we are, flaws and all. Living without the fear of judgment requires courage. It requires us to face the discomfort of being different, of stepping away from the herd, and of challenging the norms that bind us. But Montaigne shows us that this is the only way to live authentically. The world will always have opinions about who we should be, but we have the power to decide who we are, to choose our own narrative, and to live our lives on our own terms. In today's hyper-connected world, the pressure to conform is greater than ever. Social media platforms, cultural trends, and political ideologies all demand our attention and allegiance. But Montaigne's philosophy offers a counterpoint, the freedom to be yourself, unencumbered by the need to fit into a predefined mold. By embracing his radical honesty and self-reflection, we can free ourselves from the prison of judgment and live a life that is uniquely our own. The ultimate act of freedom, then, is not to escape from the world, but to be able to walk through it without the fear of judgment, to stand tall in the face of criticism and rejection, knowing that our worth is not determined by the opinions of others, but by our own understanding of ourselves. In an age marked by religious wars, political instability, and the haunting shadow of plague, one man did the unthinkable. He stepped back. Michel de Montaigne, a French nobleman born into chaos, turned away from the noise of public life. He resigned from his duties, retreated to a quiet tower, and surrounded himself with books. But he didn't disappear from the world. He studied it, through the only lens that truly mattered, his own. Instead of writing about dogmas, doctrines, or decrees, Montaigne wrote about himself, his fears, his contradictions, his thoughts as they came, raw and unfiltered. In doing so, he became something rare, an honest man in a dishonest age. His essays weren't about impressing the philosophers of his time. They were about confronting the mirror. He questioned everything: truth, virtue, pride, even philosophy itself. What made his work revolutionary wasn't its structure. It was the idea that the inner life mattered. That understanding the self could be more valuable than fixing the world. And in many ways, Montaigne was one of the earliest psychologists. He saw how people got swept up in mass delusions. He watched society destroy itself in the name of certainty. And instead of joining the madness, he stepped back to observe, to reflect, and, most radically of all, to accept. Because Montaigne understood something we still struggle with today: the world will always be chaotic. But peace? That starts from within. Fast forward to the present day. We live in an age of hyperconnectivity, where every second brings a new notification, opinion, or crisis. We're told to care about everything, all the time, to have a stance, a reaction, a rebuttal. And in that storm of stimulation, we slowly lose touch with what actually matters to us. This is where Montaigne's voice becomes prophetic. He reminds us that caring too much about how we're perceived, about arguments we don't even believe, about being constantly right, can become a trap. We give our energy to battles that drain us, not shape us. Montaigne offers an alternative: care selectively, think deeply, live deliberately. Not everything deserves your energy. His philosophy isn't about apathy, it's about clarity. It's about choosing your battles, defining your values, and stepping out of the current long enough to see where it's even going. It's not the world you need to change first. It's your relationship with it. And when you do that, when you stop caring about the noise, the pressure, the chaos, you finally create space to care about what actually matters: family, curiosity, growth, peace. Montaigne didn't escape the world. He understood it. And in that understanding, he found freedom. In a world increasingly overwhelmed by noise and pressure, Montaigne's legacy offers something rare: stillness. A quiet rebellion against the frantic pace of modern life. He gives us permission to turn inward, to pause, and to reclaim our attention. His philosophy doesn't demand we abandon the world. It simply invites us to engage with it from a place of self-awareness and intentionality, to stop chasing everything, to start choosing something. And maybe that's the most radical idea of all, that the real revolution doesn't begin out there. It begins in here, with the courage to be fully, unapologetically yourself. If Montaigne's wisdom struck a chord with you, give this video a like, subscribe for more philosophical deep dives, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Remember, your energy is your power. Choose wisely and choose yourself.